I'm Hannah Yellow, and this is Collision Route. Today we're going to talk about all of ancient world history in 10 minutes.
Mrs. Yellow, Mrs. Yellow!
Yes, me from the past?
You're going to talk about all of that in 10 minutes?
Shut up, we can do it. Mesopotamia means between the rivers, which is exactly where it began, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, also known as the Fertile Crescent. Nomads settled in a stretch of land from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. People lived in self-governed land called city-states, where men and women farmed and could own businesses.
Men owned slaves and had the authority to sell their wives. Trade goods and people dominated their society.
In terms of religion, the Mesopotamians were polytheistic and believed that the earth was a flat disk with heaven hovering above it. They had temples and altars built with designated priests. Before kings ruled, priests were in power and they ruled by divine insight. It was believed that the king was a representative of the gods and that his will represented their will. The king directly ruled his people and made his power known by making laws. Hammurabi created a set of laws called Hammurabi's Code that listed out punishments for all wrong deeds. The code was written out in cuneiform, the world's first writing system, and was displayed all over the kingdom on obelisks.
In addition, they are responsible for inventing the wheel, sail, and the plow, among other things.
However, the Mesopotamians struggled to control flooding from the river, and eventually the Fertile Crescent was dominated by other groups. Yet the later people adopted many ideas from the earlier Mesopotamians. Meanwhile, to the west, Egyptians were busy building pyramids to put their mummies in. An example looks a little like this. Never mind, usually they weren't made out of people. Egypt was divided into 3 time periods: Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. The 3 rulers of the Old Kingdom were Menes, who built walls around Memphis to keep it from flooding, Djoser and Snefru, who created the first pyramid. The Middle Kingdom, Sesostris ruled, and the New Kingdom was moved to Thebes and was ruled by Hatshepsut, who was the first woman to become a pharaoh.
Pharaohs were the rulers of Egypt, and unlike the Mesopotamians, the Egyptian pharaohs were believed to be actual gods. They were the center of the religion, government, and army. Society was divided into classes with royalty at the top, along with wealthy landowners, then merchants, peasants, and farmers, and lastly slaves. The Egyptians were polytheistic and believed there was an afterlife in which they would be judged according to the good that they had done on earth. Government rule was a theocracy, as the rule came from religious authority. The pharaoh was the supreme ruler over everything for the kingdom.
Egyptians made huge strides in inventions and trade. They figured out how to use the currents on the Nile River for transportation and trade. They developed a calendar to track when the river would flood. However, if the river didn't flood enough, Egyptians starved, and if it flooded too much, the farmland and homes were destroyed. During the period of the Middle and Old Kingdom in Egypt, a civilization was emerging in the Indus River Valley. The Indo-Europeans had a very strict caste system. It started at the top with the Brahmins, who were wealthy priests who prayed and talked with God. Next come the Kshitras, who were rulers and warriors who were brave fighters. The Vaishyas were third, and their caste was made up of businessmen and traders. Second to last come the Shudras, who were hard-working farmers. Lastly comes the Untouchables, who were the lowest of the low. They were treated horribly and were considered not pure. Thought bubble! There were 2 main religions in India, Hinduism and Buddhism. Hinduism was a polytheistic religion who believed in the caste system. They had Vedas, which were a collection of 4 sacred writings. Hinduism had 3 passions. Buddhism, on the other hand, rejected the caste system. They had the 4 noble truths. Religions have an end goal to reach a state of understanding and break from the chains of reincarnations. They both believe in nonviolence and meditation as well. Now on to government. The Indus people had a strong central government. They had well-planned cities that were organized on a grid system. The economy depended significantly on trade, which was facilitated by advances in transport. The Indus Valley Civilization was also known as the Harappan Civilization, after Harappa, due to the many archaeological discoveries made there.
They had good urban planning, baked brick houses, elaborate drainage systems, water supply systems, and advanced plumbing.
Lastly, they were among the first to develop a system of uniform weights and measures. Buddha was a pretty important person during this time due to, founding Buddhism and such. The major successes of this civilization were the 2 religions, as well as the advancement in plumbing, as well as gridded cities. A failure could be that the cities basically fell to decay due to tectonic plates shifting, so that was basically the end of that. Meanwhile, in China, the Chinese Empire was rising to power. The society was patriarchal, and classes were sharply divided. Family was highly valued, and sons were preferred over daughters because they could carry on the family name. The Chinese believed that their ancestors, spirits, could bring them good or bad fortune and made sacrifices to them. Buddhism was practiced but highly persecuted, while Confucianism was preferred. Confucius developed the idea that if everyone fulfills their required duties of 5 major relationships, a perfect society would be created. Different dynasties were created, and power often changed hands, as the Chinese believed in the mandate of heaven, using it to justify overthrowing the government.
Eventually, they developed a bureaucracy. The Chinese Empire used coin money and established currency standards. They built many roads and canals for trade, and also reopened the Silk Road.
They utilized and prospered from agriculture. A large economic growth resulted in the government issuing banknotes nationally. The Chinese invented blast iron furnaces, used gunpowder, and established true north using the compass. They also developed paper, a writing system, and woodblock printing. One of their greatest successes was building the Great Wall as a protected defense, but it also cost many workers' lives. Although they also made economic and political developments, it often took very harsh rule to control the people of the Chinese Empire. Emperor Shi Hungadi expanded Chinese trade and territory, and Emperor Liu Bang established a time of peace and stability while developing a new government systems and jobs. Hello, Greece. The culture of Greece was full of exciting things. The Greek language, mythology about gods and goddesses, philosophers searching for the truth, and the Olympic Games. No, not that. Right, that's much better. The religion of Greece was mostly based on the gods and goddesses that they believed that could control nature. Zeus, for example, is the ruler of all the gods and lived on Mount Olympus. Greece had a direct democracy. Citizens ruled by majority vote. The citizens also brought charges of wrongdoing. They had a law code, and the citizenship was extended to all free male adults except foreigners. Their economy depended on importing goods because of the poverty of Greece's soil. Some important inventions and discoveries were Euclid's geometry textbook, the development of the lever pulley pump, and an accurate estimate of the Earth's circumference. Some important figures during this time were the gods and goddesses such as Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and Ares, the goddess of war. Many philosophers and scholars advanced technology and knowledge as well. Another big success was the Greek victory at the Battle of Marathon. Without this win, there would have been no Greek culture. One failure was that Athens was defeated by Sparta in the Peloponnesian War, wrecking many cities. Also, constant battles between city-states led to the fall of ancient Greece.
It has it that Rome was built by 2 mortal brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were raised by a she-wolf. In reality, Rome was built by the Latins and strongly influenced by the Etruscans. Rome honored strength over beauty and usefulness over elegance. Social classes had little in common. The plebeians lived on countryside farms, while the patricians lived in luxury. Rome was a republic, with the government voted on by citizens. Julius Caesar was a consul, and after being stabbed to death 23 times, he passed the crown to his relative Augustus, turning Rome from a republic into an empire. Deities, as symbols of the state, were expected to be honored publicly and privately. During Pax Romana, Christianity emerged. It was frowned upon because it was monotheistic and directly opposed the worship of Roman gods. Christians were scapegoats for political and economic troubles, and unlike Nero, Constantine was the first emperor who did not persecute them. As Rome grew, the gap between the rich and the poor increased, so Augustus set up a civil service where he paid workers to manage government affairs.
However, the economy suffered from inflation and money dropped in value, and agriculture failed from overfarming. The Romans invented aqueducts and arches, moving fresh water into the city.
Rome eventually fell, but its legacy lives on. As some old famous white guy said, Rome never fell because it turned into something even greater, an idea, and achieved immortality. Moving on to the Americas. The first people were Mongolian hunters who followed game across a land bridge to North America. They supported themselves by hunting, and over time, they experimented with plants and agriculture. Most Mesoamerican cultures were polytheistic. The Mayans tied science into their religion, believing that gods created different aspects of their lives. The Aztecs even made human sacrifices to honor their gods. The Chavin had little political structure, so the priest was their leader. In the Mayan government, the king was thought to be divine and godlike. The Mayan civilization had separate city-states that never fully unified. The Aztecs had an emperor with absolute power, while the Incas developed a bureaucracy. People grew crops and traded local products. They developed better farm methods such as raised beds and hillside terraces, and also practiced hunting and fishing. Various calendars were developed for farming, military strategies, and religion. The Mayans invented hieroglyphs to record events. Different art forms, knowledge of science and math, and military strategies were introduced to society. Nevertheless, many different civilizations rose and fell. Some fell when war disrupted their trade and economy, others declined from over-farming and the lack of resources in times of famine and disease. Montezuma II was an emperor in the Aztec Empire who demanded many tributes and sacrificial victims for religious ceremonies, causing rebellion. Pachacuti was a ruler who led the Incas to power. Hey, great take, everyone. You know what? Good job.
Who are you?
I'm proud of you.
Get out! Who are you?
I'm better than you.
Get out!
I'm better. Done.
Jeez, we need to get better security. Sorry, I was out for lunch.
Now to the Middle East, where a man named Muhammad heard the voice of the angel Gabriel call him during meditation. He believed that the Lord Allah was speaking to him and that he was the last prophet.
He taught that Allah was the one and only God and created the religion of Islam, meaning submission to the will of Allah. Followers are called Muslims, though there were few until Muhammad went on a journey called the Hajj to be a Muslim, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, both religiously and culturally. The 5 pillars are giving a statement of faith to Allah, praying 5 times a day facing the Kaaba in Mecca, giving alms to the poor, fasting during the holy month of Ramadan, and performing the Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca. Muslims follow the Quran, their holy code book. They have strict values such as not gambling, eating pork, or drinking alcohol. Men are in charge of women and can have multiple wives, but are required to treat them with respect. Women must dress modestly and cover their heads with the hijab during the day. Since the Islamic world is dominated by their religion, they tend to be a peaceful society in contrast to the Mongols. To the Mongols, a nomadic people from the eastern Asian steppe, they traveled in clans but joined together against a common enemy. They were usually on horseback, using the stirrup for increased mobility and accuracy for archery. This way of life continued until Temujin, or Genghis Khan, united the Mongols. They became an intimidating force and took control over most modern-day Asia and Europe. He brought fear wherever he went, killing thousands of people, raiding villages, raping women, and spreading diseases by catapulting dead, infected animals or people into the enemy.
Disease!
Were shamanistic, meaning they believed in gods based on where they were from, so they didn't force their conquered people to convert religion.
The Mongols expanded trade in Asia, helping their economy thrive. Basically, the Mongols made everyone so afraid of punishment that they wouldn't dare try to steal from them.
Unfortunately, opening trade roads also caused diseases such as the Black Plague to spread quickly. In the end, the Mongols basically faded out of the picture, thus ending all of ancient world history. Maybe not really, but for the sake of this collision route, the world is over.